What if you're not actually busy? You're just avoiding your life. Not your job, not your responsibilities, your life. The one you keep saying you'll figure out later. Because if you're honest, you've been doing a lot lately. Scrolling, watching, planning, thinking, but somehow nothing important is really moving. And that's the part that bothers you. That quiet feeling at night, when everything slows down and you realize you did a lot today, but you didn't do what actually matters. And it's uncomfortable to admit, because busy sounds productive, it sounds responsible. It sounds like you're trying, but avoiding, that hits different. That feels like something deeper. And this is where it gets real. Busyness is the perfect disguise. It hides the truth. Because as long as you're doing something, you never have to face what you're not doing. Let me ask you something. When was the last time you sat in silence, with no distractions, no phone, no background noise, just you? Yeah, most people can't even remember. Because silence forces you to see things. Things you've been avoiding, decisions you've been delaying, goals you keep pushing forward, versions of yourself you're not becoming. And instead of facing that, you stay busy, not because you have to, but because it's easier. Be honest, does this feel familiar? Waking up already tired, not physically, mentally, like your brain never really shuts off. Jumping from one thing to another, but never feeling caught up. Always slightly behind. And no matter how much you do, it never feels like enough. So you keep going, keep moving, keep distracting, because slowing down, that's when it hits you. That's when the real thoughts show up. Am I wasting time? Why haven't I started yet? What am I even doing? And that's exactly what you're trying to avoid. Now here's the part nobody tells you. You're not overwhelmed because you have too much to do. You're overwhelmed because you're not doing the one thing that actually matters. So everything else feels heavy. Meaningless tasks pile up. Small things drain you. Even simple decisions feel exhausting because deep down, you know you're off track. And your brain doesn't like that. It keeps reminding you, quietly, constantly. But instead of listening, you drown it out. More content, more noise, more distractions. And it works, for a while. Until it doesn't. Until you feel that weird mix of being busy all day and still feeling like you're going nowhere. That's not laziness. That's avoidance, and most people never catch it. They spend years like this, always about to start, always getting ready, always waiting for the right time. But the truth? There is no right time. There's only the moment you stop avoiding, and that moment is uncomfortable. Because now, you don't have anything to hide behind. No excuses, no distractions. No, I'll do it later. Just you and the truth. So here's the question most people won't ask themselves. What are you actually avoiding? Not what you say, not what sounds good. The real answer. That thing you keep pushing away, that decision you don't want to make, that step you know you should take, but keep delaying. Think about it for a second. Don't rush it. Because this right here, this is where everything starts. But this is also where most people stop. Because awareness is uncomfortable. It breaks the illusion. You can't pretend anymore. You can't lie to yourself as easily. And for a moment, you might even wish you didn't realize it. Because now you see it everywhere. Every wasted hour. Every unnecessary distraction. Every time you chose comfort over growth. And it stings. But this is where things change. Because once you see it, you have a choice. You either go back to sleep, or you wake up. And waking up doesn't feel good at first. It feels heavy, like responsibility just landed on you. Because now you know it's not about time. It's about what you do with it. And more importantly, what you keep avoiding. So now the real journey begins. Not fixing your schedule, not optimizing your routine. Something deeper. Because until you understand why you're avoiding your life, you'll keep finding new ways to escape it. And trust me, your brain is very good at that. But once you understand the reason behind it, everything starts to shift. And what you're about to realize next might change how you see yourself completely.
But here's where it gets uncomfortable. You're not avoiding your life because you're lazy. You're avoiding it because you're scared. Not obvious fear, not the kind that makes you run. The quiet kind. The kind that whispers, "What if I try and fail?" And that's enough to stop you. Because as long as you don't fully try, you never have to fully find out. It's a strange kind of safety, living in almost starting, almost committing, almost becoming who you said you'd be, because almost protects you. If you fail there, it doesn't really count. But if you go all in, now it's real. Now there's something to lose. And that's the part you avoid. Not the work, the risk, the exposure, the possibility that you give it your best and it still doesn't work. So instead, you stay busy. You tell yourself you're working on it. You gather information, watch videos, plan things out, but never fully step in, because stepping in means you can't hide anymore. Now here's the part that hits hard. Avoidance doesn't feel like avoidance. It feels like preparation. It feels responsible, smart even. I just need a little more time. I'm not ready yet. I'll start when things calm down. But things never calm down. There's always something, and your brain loves that, because every delay keeps you safe, keeps you comfortable, keeps you exactly where you are. Let me ask you something. How long have you been getting ready? Weeks? Months? Years? Yeah, that one stings. Because deep down, you already know the answer. And here's the truth most people avoid. Clarity doesn't come before action. It comes from action. You don't think your way into a new life. You move your way into it. Messy, uncertain, imperfect. And that's what you've been resisting. Not the work, the uncertainty. Because your brain wants guarantees. It wants to know it'll work. It wants to feel confident before starting. But confidence doesn't come first. It comes after. After you show up. After you try. After you prove to yourself you can handle it. Now this is where things start to shift. Because once you see this pattern, you can't unsee it. You start noticing how often you delay things that matter and instantly do things that don't. You'll hesitate before starting something important, but scroll without thinking. You'll overanalyze one decision for hours, but waste time without resistance. That's not random. That's avoidance in disguise. And once you notice it, you start catching yourself. Mid-action, mid-distraction, mid-excuse. And it's almost uncomfortable, because now you're aware in real time. Why am I doing this right now? What am I avoiding? And for a second, you pause. That pause, that's power. Because most people don't have that. They operate on autopilot, reacting, scrolling, avoiding, without even realizing it. But now you do. And that changes everything.
because now you have a gap, a small moment between impulse and action, and in that gap, you get to choose. Not perfectly, not every time, but enough to start shifting things. This next part changes everything. You don't need to fix your entire life. You need to win one decision, just one. One moment where you choose what matters over what's easy. One moment where you stop yourself mid-distraction and redirect. That's it. Sounds small, but it's not, because that one moment breaks the pattern. It proves something important, that you're not stuck. You're just used to repeating. And once you break that even once, you realize you can do it again. Now here's a quiet truth most people won't admit. They don't trust themselves. Not fully. Because they've made promises before and didn't keep them. Said they'd start and didn't. Said, this time is different, and went back to the same habits. So now, even when they want to change, there's doubt. Will I actually follow through? And that doubt, it feeds the avoidance, because why start if you don't believe you'll finish? But this is where the shift happens. You don't rebuild trust by thinking. You rebuild it by doing. Small, simple, consistent. Doing what you said you would, even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it, because that's where trust is built, not in motivation, in discipline, in showing up when it's inconvenient. And slowly, that voice inside changes from doubt to belief, not overnight, but steadily. And that's when things start to feel different. You're not just thinking about change anymore, you're becoming it. But here's where it gets deeper, because even with awareness, even with small wins, there's still one thing that keeps pulling people back. Something subtle, something emotional. And once you understand it, you stop fighting yourself and finally start moving forward.
And this is the part most people never notice. You're not just avoiding actions. You're avoiding a version of yourself. The one you keep imagining, but never fully stepping into. Because becoming that person, it requires change. Not surface-level change, real change. The kind that affects how you think, how you act, how you show up when no one's watching. And that's uncomfortable. Because right now, you know who you are. Even if you're not fully happy with it, it's familiar, predictable, safe. But that next version of you, it's unknown. And the brain doesn't like unknown. It would rather keep you in a life you don't love than risk stepping into something uncertain. So it does something subtle. It keeps you busy, distracted, occupied just enough to never fully transform. Now here's the uncomfortable realization. You don't just have habits. You have an identity. I'm someone who procrastinates. I'm someone who starts but doesn't finish. I'm someone who struggles with discipline. And the more you repeat those patterns, the more real they feel, until eventually, you stop questioning them. You accept them. And once that happens, change feels even harder. Because now you're not just changing actions, you're changing who you believe you are. Let that sink in for a second. Because this right here is where most people get stuck. They try to change behavior without changing identity. And it never lasts. You can force yourself for a few days, maybe even a few weeks, but eventually, you go back. Because deep down, you still see yourself the same way, so your actions follow. Now here's the shift. You don't rise to your goals. You fall to your identity. So if you still believe, I'm someone who avoids hard things, guess what you'll do? Avoid hard things.
no matter how motivated you feel, no matter how many plans you make, because identity always wins. But here's the part that changes everything. Identity is not fixed. It's built through repetition, through evidence, through what you consistently do. So if you want to become someone different, you don't start by believing it. You start by proving it, in small ways, again and again. You don't say, "I'm disciplined." You act disciplined. Once, then again, then again. And slowly, your brain catches up. It starts to say, maybe this is who I am now. That's how identity shifts. Not through words, through actions. Now let me ask you something. If someone followed you around for a week, just watching what you do, what kind of person would they say you are? Not what you want to be, not what you say you are, what your actions prove. Take a second, because this answer matters. And yeah, it might not feel great, but this isn't about judgment, it's about awareness. Because once you see it clearly, you can change it intentionally. The next part is where it gets real. You don't need to become a completely new person overnight. You need to become slightly better consistently. Because drastic change feels overwhelming. But small change? That's manageable. That's repeatable. That's sustainable. So instead of asking, how do I fix my whole life? You ask, what would a disciplined version of me do right now? Not later, not tomorrow, right now. And then you do that, even if it's small, even if it feels insignificant, because it's not. It's evidence. And every piece of evidence builds identity. Now here's the interesting part. The more you act like that person, the less you need motivation, because it stops feeling like effort. It starts feeling like who you are. And that's when things click. You're not forcing discipline anymore. You're expressing it. You're not trying to be focused. You are focused, because that's who you've become. But let's be real for a second. This isn't a straight path. You will slip. You will have days where you fall back, where you choose comfort, where you avoid again. That doesn't mean you've failed. It means you're human. The difference now is you notice it faster. You recover quicker. You don't stay stuck as long. And that's growth. Not perfection. Progress. And over time, those small shifts compound. They stack, they build, until one day you look at your life and it feels different. Not because something magical happened, but because you changed. Quietly, consistently, intentionally. And that's when you realize you were never actually stuck. You were just repeating. But now, you're choosing. And that changes everything. But there's still one final piece. The thing that decides whether this sticks or fades like everything else you've tried. And once you understand it, you don't just change temporarily. You change for good.
And this is the piece that decides everything. Not your motivation, not your plan, not even your discipline. Your standard. Because at the end of the day, you don't get what you want. You get what you tolerate. Read that again, because it explains more than you think. You say you want focus, but you tolerate distractions. You say you want progress, but you tolerate inconsistency. You say you want a better life, but you tolerate habits that keep you where you are. And as long as you tolerate it, nothing changes. That's the quiet truth. Change doesn't come from wanting more. It comes from accepting less. Less excuses, less avoidance,
Less, I'll do it later. And here's where it gets real. Raising your standard isn't loud. It's not some dramatic moment. It's a quiet decision. A line you draw. I don't do this anymore. That's it. Simple, but powerful. Because once that line is clear, your choices get easier. Not easy, easier. You don't debate with yourself as much. You don't overthink every action. You just follow the standard you set. Now let me ask you something. What are you currently tolerating that you know you shouldn't be? Don't rush the answer, because this one matters. That habit you keep excusing. That distraction you keep justifying. That delay you keep repeating. Yeah, that's the thing. And deep down, you already know it. This next part changes everything. You don't need to fix 10 things. You need to stop tolerating one. Just one. Because that one shift creates momentum. It sends a message to yourself. I'm not that person anymore. And the moment you believe that, your actions start aligning. Not perfectly, but consistently. Now here's something most people misunderstand. Discipline is not punishment. It's self-respect. It's the decision to show up for your future, even when your present self resists. It's choosing growth over comfort, again and again. And yeah, that's uncomfortable. At first, but over time, it becomes normal, because your standard has changed. And once your standard changes, your life follows. Not instantly, but inevitably. Because now, you're not negotiating with your old habits. You're replacing them, one decision at a time. Let's be honest for a second. You already know what you need to do. You've known for a while. This isn't new information. It's a reminder, a wake-up call. Because knowing isn't your problem. Action is. Consistency is. And that's what this comes down to. Not a perfect plan. Not the perfect moment. Just showing up. Even when it's inconvenient. Even when it's boring. Even when it's hard. Because that's what builds a different life. Not intensity. Consistency. Now imagine this version of you. The one who doesn't avoid anymore. The one who doesn't need constant motivation. The one who does what needs to be done, without overthinking it. That version of you? They're not special. They just stop tolerating the old patterns. That's it. And you can do the same. Right now. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Right now. One decision. That's all it takes to start. So here's your moment. You can close this. Go back to the same habits, the same distractions, the same cycle. Or you can do something different. Even if it's small. Especially if it's small. Because small actions are what break big patterns. And once you break the pattern, you break the cycle. And once you break the cycle, you take control. So don't overthink it. You already know what your next step is. Do that. Right after this. Not later. Now. If this hits something in you, don't ignore it. That's awareness. And awareness is where everything starts. Most people will feel this and go right back to scrolling. But you don't have to. You can actually use this. You can actually change something. Right now. Say something. Not for anyone else. For yourself. Because this isn't about watching another video. It's about becoming someone who finally stops avoiding their life. If this hit home, don't just scroll. Subscribe and start showing up for the life you keep putting off.